Rewind-A-Dynamite from the most wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from John and Waiting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rewind-A-Dynamite, a very special edition of the show. I am John Pollock, waiting, still off, away, in Japan, so stepping in tonight. It's not going to be me solo tonight. I am joined by Damian Abraham.
Yay! Yay! Road Warriors 2000 in the house.
I called upon you, and here you are, showing up at my place, no less, on a Wednesday night.
I am so excited to be here. I said I'm part of the Thursday Morning Wars now. Let's see what they're doing on the other podcast tomorrow morning. Let's see what
you chose your loyalty well.
Yeah, let me tell you what they're doing right now. They're talking about Braden hating Lizzo and Star Wars, but we're over here on the main show talking about Japanese pro wrestling and your trip to Japan, John.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm having a pretty, I'm like a pretty calm period right now. Like I was trying to get over to Japan. It looked like it was going to happen. And then alas, it did not.
Yeah. People asking if you were coming. And
I was hoping.
I had to inform them that it was a hope, but it did not pan out.
It was a hope. And there's still hope for that project. So I don't want to talk about it, just yet in case it does happen eventually. But I had to live vicariously through the IG posts of one. I am John Pollock and Wei Ting and Post Wrestling.
How many trips have you made to Japan?
I've done
and I was discussing this. Did you do one for all the Viceland shoots, or you did two?
I did two.
Because I was thinking that's a lot for one trip.
It's funny because I went to Japan. Prior to that, I'd been there 3 times. And I'd really only been there for about 4 days in those 3 times, maybe 7 days. So going to make the show for Vice, I was there for 3 weeks. So I really got to experience it. And so knowing what I got to experience when I was over there and knowing that you were about to go over there, I was just so happy for you. I was jealousy never even crossed my mind. It was just I'm just so stoked John gets to do this finally. Mouth is the other one that I want to see do this, Yeah,
I think he would have a great time there.
Oh my gosh.
He'd probably go insane.
The food, the beer, the party of it all, the music. I think he would, I think we'd lose him. He'd never come back.
To me, it was the convenience of coffee is so readily available.
Yeah.
Vending machines, you cannot throw a rock without hitting a place that you can get coffee.
I would say also for you, the lack of human interaction required in ordering in restaurants would have also been a little bit appealing.
That's nice. Although I didn't shy away from it. It was a bit of a challenge to go and order something in Japanese.
It's very hard.
They're very helpful though. I mean, I didn't run into anyone who kind of was just looking at me I'm just from outer space.
I went to a sushi bar one night and I had a guy no-sell everything.
Oh.
And I'm like, I think I'm pronouncing Toro right. I think I'm pointing to the picture too. I think we should be.
Well, think about it the other way. Imagine someone comes up to you in the middle of the street speaking Japanese to you. I wouldn't know what to 100%. Do. I wouldn't have anything, and no, I didn't run into any issues. They always figured out what I wanted.
Oh, I'm saying that's the one exception that as you're saying, the rule of everyone's super. It's such an amazing place to visit. It's no matter what you're into. There's a store there that sells just that thing, and it's just waiting for you to discover it, no matter what you're into. You could be into the most esoteric, weird subsect, and there's someone over there being oh, here's everything that John Pollock will need, and that guy's Totocon. But, for a lot of us, it could be different stores. For me, it's record stores. For me, it's a lot of stores over there. I hemorrhage money.
Well, we're going to see how this show goes because now the return is killing me.
I know.
I'm exhausted. I'm just, once 7 o'clock hits, it's a struggle for me. I went to sleep on Tuesday earlier than I have in years. I went to bed at 10 p.m., but the side effect of that is I was up and working at 5:30 in the morning this morning.
That's why I'm like the guy that they send in with you, John, when you're just like not ready for the show. You know, the TNA sale tonight. There's times where Damian and John have to work under adverse conditions. But that's the thing. I know I'm working with you when you're working hurt. So I'm here to like provide this like energy kick.
So I've got you. You've come equipped.
I'm high on Coca-Cola, and
yes.
Weed. A lot of weed, John.
Yes, I know you were very upfront. There will be no testing here.
I had to keep it like Way does, like super high.
I guess so.
Let's break kayfabe now, John.
So coming up later this week, folks, we've got more shows coming your way. Want to make mention that. In addition to this show, you can also check out Up Next, which will already be up on their feed now. Also on Thursday, dropping for everybody, the MMA Prediction Show. I imagine one show every year that, Damian, you never listen to.
I love your MMA shows, John. I tell you this every time. That's the only way I keep abreast with MMA. I have a cousin who's he trains at TriStar in Montreal, and like, is that what's called, TriStar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And he's a huge fan, and the only way I can keep in abreast of it enough to converse with them is through your show. So I'm very excited about Ariel Helwani coming on this week, who was exchanging Instagram posts with my friend Nathan Williams from Waves.
Really?
So it's all a little circle, John.
Look at that, all those connections. Are you going to be watching this Conor McGregor-Donald Cerrone fight on Saturday? I
was going to say I should hit you up to come over, but I don't think my wife will let me out 2 nights in a row.
That's right. I'm a bad influence on you, clearly.
But I will definitely be listening to the post show with yourself because it's an exciting one. You know, the Cowboy versus Conor McGregor, and I think Conor McGregor, it's just like, how could you not? If you're a fan of combat sports or just characters in general, how can you not want to see this guy knocked out?
It's going to be a big fight on Saturday. So that will be up as well. Myself and Phil Chair Talk, we are going to have a post show up on Saturday night. We'll also have Rewind to SmackDown dropping for patrons on Friday as well. WH Park with a new edition of Thunderstruck coming out on Sunday, as he's going to be joined by JP Houlihan to chat about Jushin Thunder Liger, Yoshinobu Kanemaru from Pro Wrestling Noah's first ever Tokyo Dome show in July of 2004. So all of that you can check out at postwrestling.com, as well as all the latest news that we have a ton to get into. It has been a pretty busy period of news. So are you ready to dive in?
Yeah, I'm glad you came back to wrestling when it was at its
quiet
most
week,
trash fire-esque moment.
Well, the big story today, there were several of them actually. We're going to get into the passing of Rocky Johnson, but first up was the announcement that WarnerMedia and by extension TNT have extended AEW Dynamite through 2023, and then we've seen additional reporting from Dave Meltzer that this extension is worth $175 million, which works out to about $44 million per year. That is going to make AEW profitable this year. And that to me is an enormous feat for this company to be profitable in year 2 and securing this deal. And then I guess there's an extension for 2024 that would be a sizable increase. But, a year in, Damian, like this to me is like a really, really solid, way to cap off their 1 year of existence.
Oh, it's incredible. Like, I think, going in, those numbers that we heard that were the predictions of the ratings that they were hopeful for, and the fact that they've exceeded those prediction numbers, like, I think it shows that maybe those were real numbers that we were hearing. Because, yeah, look, they're obviously very impressed by this deal. I think it's funny when you break it down, it's almost going to work out to, at the current ratings, they're paying $1 per viewer per episode.
If that's how the math works out,
yeah,
yes.
I think I'm like breaking it down in my head, and I think that's what it works out to, right? Like, it's just under $1 million per episode, right? $44 million per year. And then so they're paying like $1 per viewer.
Yeah. So they're in a situation now where, in addition to, as part of this deal, a second show is going to be created, and it's not going to be AEW Dark. So it sounds like they're going to be taping 4 hours of content each week. Mm-hmm. And this other show could land somewhere within the WarnerMedia family. It could be on TNT, it could be on TBS, it could be elsewhere. But what are your thoughts on an additional AEW program, and just your overall thoughts on how they've been utilizing these 2 hours of Dynamite on Wednesday nights?
My hope is that this is an opportunity to make something new. Like, I think the presentation of wrestling that AEW does. Like not the in-ring stuff, like just the presentation of it. It looks very familiar. And so I think this would be an opportunity to maybe shoot something in a small room. Like there's all these incredible indie shows that happen in these tiny rooms where the energy is different, and like a real kind of like, I know this is cliche for me to say it, but like a punk rock vibe show. I'd like that, or like a really, maybe not as extreme as Lucha Underground, but like just like a different presentation of wrestling. Like I was watching Wrestle Kingdom with my eldest, and, he was playing Fortnite at the same time, but he was just, as soon as the wrestling came on, he was hooked. But it was like the stuff in between that it was just like, there's got to be a way to present it for younger kids to kind of get hooked, or like a new generation to kind of get hooked in it. Yeah.
I think overall, like this is a great success for AEW to be able to strike a deal at this level. It tells you that, a major cable network sees a ton of value in pro wrestling that is not WWE in the United States, and does that. Do other broadcasters kind of play catch up now and look at a New Japan or MLW, which is now, their rights are going to be up later this year, and they've now partnered up with an agency where they're shopping those rights. The idea that another wrestling program might be able to get a deal if we're establishing kind of where the market is willing to pay for AEW, and having that confidence that wrestling can bring you X amount of viewers and how advertisers respond to that.
I think it shows that, and I think it also shows what a panic cable is in right now, where these numbers, like TNA numbers from a few years ago, would make TNA a very valuable property right now.
Yeah, like at a time when they were doing, consistently we're doing 1 million viewers
over
on Spike TV.
Sometimes. Yeah, like we were like, I remember like there was a talk of them hitting a 2 million at one point. Like it was like, wow, this could happen. But I don't think it ever did, right? They never hit that high. But
their highest was that
Monday night.
That first Monday night. That was their best number. And it was the strangest thing with TNA that they could consistently, like that television audience, they religiously tuned in every week on Spike, but they never buy the pay-per-views. It was always like, it would be, we will watch this, but we will not spend money on this product. And that was always something TNA could never get over that hump. And at least with AEW, they have been able to prove that their audience will pay for their product as well, whether it be on pay-per-view or at live events.
Absolutely. Like I think that's the one thing, no matter what you're going to say, that separates this company from a lot of other companies, is that people are still showing up at their shows.
Mm-hmm. So this is, to me, a really, really significant story. The fact that they get this extension, and at these figures that Dave Meltzer has reported, that I think you have to look at, in the grand scheme of things, if you're comparing this to WWE, this is not in the stratosphere of what their Raw and SmackDown deals are. But when you're talking about, 16 to 22% of what those deals are for a company that is 1 year old, like I look at this as such a strong positive that they're profitable in year number 2. That's incredible.
Well, especially because the ratings haven't been necessarily trending up, and that's the other thing, that it's like they definitely are showing they have faith in this company, that they're committed, and they're committed to see them grow.
Well, and another part of that is, and this goes for NXT as well, is the fact that these DVR numbers have been very solid for both shows. And the question is, how valuable are those numbers if you're not watching it live? I'm sure you've encountered this in shows that you've been involved with. Like, how important do you find DVR numbers? And I just look at TNT. They're about to launch a streaming service. Is there that faith that some of these people that are watching on DVR, would they be more susceptible to get our streaming service if we have this AEW product that might be able to draw them to that? That's a hidden value to me of AEW, is you're launching a streaming service. Wrestling fans may flock over there if you have a compelling product.
Yeah, like that's the one thing, and it's a very new company, so this critique doesn't hold. But like, you look at New Japan, the way New Japan's booked, like, I'm glad I have New Japan World, because now I can watch the Los Ingobernables kind of rise. Again, I can watch Naito's kind of whole arc kind of unfold, and it's such compelling storytelling that you want to go back and view. I think a lot of the wrestling shows, like, how many times do you want to go back and watch just a random Raw? And I think, there's certain matches on Dynamite that I'd want to go back and rewatch, but like as whole shows, I don't know how much rewatch value it has at this point. Like, it's going to be interesting to see as it goes on if they're able to build those things that you want to go back and watch the old episodes, or you have people that want to jump on at the beginning and kind of binge watch up to the current product, because that's what these streaming services are looking for.
Mm-hmm. Were you surprised at all? This wasn't mentioned at all on tonight's broadcast. I thought they would kind of tout this fact. Like, this is a real, pump your chest out kind of moment for them. But there was unless I missed something, that like it would have been in passing, but there seemed to be nothing on the show tonight.
No, but I think it's also like, it feels like it's very much in the body of the show, like, I don't know, that seems like it'd almost be extra diegetic, like it would just be like not part of their universe, but I don't know. I guess when we get into the review, we'll talk about the universe of the show, because I've got a lot of questions.
Okay. We'll get into that.
A lot of realities going on. I feel like Nate talking about Crisis on the Infinite Earths right now.
The other major story today was the passing of Rocky Johnson, the father of Dwayne Johnson. He's believed to be 75 years old, and that's the age I've seen everywhere. And the only reason I say believed to be is that there was this Instagram post several years ago by Dwayne Johnson where he got his father this truck for Christmas. And he mentioned the story that, for those not familiar, Rocky Johnson, he was born in Nova Scotia. He was actually born in Canada. And then he left there when he was 13 after an issue with his mom and I think it was stepfather or the mother's boyfriend, whichever. And he left there Dwayne said it was in 1954 when he was 13. So that would peg him as even older, unless he had the numbers wrong. But anyway.
Yeah.
It's quite the story that he left at 13 and then ended up in Toronto. He was training as a boxer before eventually getting into professional wrestling and became like a pretty big star in all the territories he went to. I mean, wrestling in Canada, Detroit, very big runs in San Francisco, in Los Angeles as well. I mean, he went all over the place. He did a tour of New Japan. Extremely talented athlete. Did the big program with Jerry Lawler in 1976. It was a boxer versus wrestler program. And just any memories of Rocky Johnson. I know it's kind of a generation apart, but this was someone that, I mean, very famous for his drop kick, tremendous physique, and then had his WWF runs as well, including winning the tag titles with Tony Atlas. Yeah,
like I think he definitely predates my time of watching wrestling, maybe the very, very end of the WWF run. But like that being said, like it's, being a fan of wrestling and being a fan of The Rock, you want to go back and see who his dad was. And yeah, watching his stuff, it's amazing how prolific this guy was as a wrestler. Like, here's a guy who, as you said, went all over the world, and The Rock famously depicted him on the 70s show, on that 70s show.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Episode. But yeah, unbelievably handsome, unbelievably gifted in the ring, like someone who, should have attained higher, like, it was amazing reading through, like, oh, he got that title, that title, but, once again, hit that ceiling of never getting one of those world titles.
Yeah. Like when you go through his resume, like this was a guy, won championships in like all the different territories he worked. And I think with him, it was just, he was never associated with one specific territory. It's just like he traveled all over the place quite a lot. But when you really dive into his life, and I didn't read the book that just came out on him, but when you assess his career, it's one that I think does get overlooked at times because of just, he did so many different territories and it's kind of the accumulation of them. It's quite an impressive career that he had. And also notable the fact that, he was very much attached to Dwayne Johnson when he was first introduced as that Rocky Maivia character. And then after that 97 period, not really like attached, at least during the rise of The Rock. Like he had the Hall of Fame induction in 2008, but not someone that was like prevalent in terms of just being, they featured him heavily when Rocky was first introduced and then kind of taken away from that presentation of Rocky, almost getting him away from presenting him as that third generation wrestler with his dad right by his side.
Yeah, it's funny because there was very little hesitation. It's funny, it goes in waves with the company. There's different times where they really play up people's, wrestling heritage. And there's other times where they really just kind of cut people away from it. I think.
Yeah. Which Rocky, they went at the beginning, like those vignettes, like that was third generation performer. They were like, that was the defining thing, right down to the names, like taking his father and grandfather's names together.
But what a brilliant thing to take him away from that. You know, it kind of worked out really well for him. There's guys that it would have worked really good to have that attached to him, I'm sure. But with him, he did just fine on his own.
Yeah. So, you can, I'm going to write something about Rocky Johnson later this week, but it's, quite a career to go through. So, he passed away, not sure what, he passed away from, what kind of, illness he had been dealing with or what the circumstances were. But that one, there was a 10-bell salute both at Full Sail University, and then they acknowledged it right off the top with a graphic at, AEW tonight, which, man, it was a very tough week when you hear all the names right off the top from Jim Ross this week. I mean, we had Pampero Firpo, La Parka, Kendo Nagasaki, and then Rocky Johnson, all within just a couple of days of one another.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, La Parka, especially being someone that passed away as a result of an injury in the ring, a really direct result of an injury in the ring. It shows you that this is like I'm not a big baseball fan. I'm not a big basketball fan, but I don't think, you had that many deaths last week in those sports, like it really feels like, wrestling is a sport that people pay for with their bodies, and I think as fans, we always got to remember that like, it is something that's going to take its toll on these people.
Yeah. And I think that's something that's in the back of my mind when I'm watching 63-year-old Diamond Dallas Page in the ring. And it's like, we marvel at this stuff, and listen, DDP looks phenomenal at his age, but it's, like, this can be very, very dangerous at times. And sometimes it's just the simplest of things that, you take for granted. And it was, just a dive to the floor, which is, is an ambitious spot at times, but so routine that you don't think of any kind of danger attached to it because we see so many of them and it's commonplace. Well,
yeah, if a 63-year-old ran out on stage and stage dove during our set, I'd think it was a little weird too. So it's definitely weird to see, DDP. And I'm sure DDP's body's taken much more of a beating, even with all the DDP yoga.
Paul Levesque issued an apology on Wednesday over the joke made about Paige. This happened earlier this week where he was doing a scrum with media in the UK and made the joke about he was talking about Edge and Paige and the potential of the two being cleared, and then was talking about them having healthy lives and mentioning Edge has kids, and then made a joke that Paige probably has kids that she's not even aware of. And it was this very awkward joke. Paige clearly did not appreciate it and instantly stated as much on Twitter about the fact that, kind of alluding to the fact that, well, even my boss makes fun of me. No wonder everybody else on here does as well. So there were a number of other females in the company that made comments about this, the Bella Twins, Renee Young, Nia Jax. So I was glad that Paul Levesque at least apologized for this. I don't think the guy was attempting to be malicious here, but I did think it was an insensitive joke to make about someone that I am sure deals with tons of harassment and awful comments on a regular basis. And just the fact that I tweeted about this, the comments I received from some people, I can only imagine how it's magnified for the person in question.
Yeah, like, I can only imagine, as you say, what it's like for her to experience that. I think the part of the video that was like the most awkward was when he was trying to get the room to laugh at the joke. Like, he says the joke, and then it's like he stops, and then, looks like I woke everyone up. Come on, everyone, like, laugh more. And it was like,
it was very cringy.
It was really weird. It was like one of those moments where in Return of the Jedi, you start seeing Darth Vader's traits in Luke Skywalker, where you're like, oh, maybe you're going to just become Vince. Blew your mind though, John, didn't I?
I didn't think of that, but maybe that. I'm just imagining Vince McMahon.
It felt like a Vinceism.
I'm imagining Vince McMahon in a casual scrum with media, and I can't really get there.
There was a time. There was a time, right? Like, where he was a little more forthcoming with the media.
Nah, there was a time. Yes, he has been accessible at certain points and more inaccessible. What will be interesting, this is kind of a sidebar, is do you expect a lot of Vince McMahon media over the next couple of weeks? Because we're just like 3 weeks away from the XFL.
Yeah, I wonder if he's going to try and distance himself from it.
I'm curious if he's if they want him out there as the face, or they don't want him out there as the face. And that could be, that could very well be where they go about it.
It's like if Coke was all of a sudden like, okay, you know what we need to do? New Coke again. We need to try it one more time. Like the first time was a huge flop, but like, it's so weird to want to revive such a like tainted brand. It's just like, everything about this is really bizarre, but yeah, like, are they going to distance themselves from the old presentation, or are they going to lean into it? I got a lot of questions. I'm really excited for the XFL.
I think that this is a way better thought out XFL. They did not race to get to the market like last year. They watched the AAF, I believe it was called, just completely flatline and die.
Well, they kind of caused it to flatline and die, right? By forcing them to speed up their launch. I read something about how they by announcing the XFL, they forced them to kind of speed up their launch.
Well, they decided to get to play first. Yeah. And they clearly just did not have the proper funding. Like, I think, with the money that has been injected into the XFL, I don't think you are going to see those problems, especially in year one. And, they've been smart that they have taken the novelty that the XFL still holds in pop culture. Like, it's not positively remembered, but it is remembered, the XFL. And it's almost like trying to apply, put more thought, like this is not a gimmick league like the first one was, with all the ridiculous stuff. And you could not get away with that stuff today, like with all promoting the cheerleaders. Yeah. And it was just pretty much promising violence. It was a totally different campaign to lead up to this one. And you have to wonder that in this fractured media market, I mean, if they do the numbers that they did the first time around, that's viewed as a success. Like, you have to look at AEW getting this kind of a deal. Is the XFL is essentially trying for the same thing. They're going to do this season in the hopes of landing a larger television deal at the end of all of this. And they've got some very good television outlets that are going to be airing these games. So you have to wonder 2 years from now or so, is there going to be a big demand for more football? If they can produce an audience, then they could really cash in here. So it will be interesting to see if the XFL can be a success, or ultimately if it's a flop like the first one was.
Yeah, football as a whole is really interesting to see where it is in its place right now. Like, from what you read about and what you understand about it, there's a real shift away from kids being put into playing football. Like there's more and more parents that are trying to get their kids not to go into it because of all the fear of concussion. So there's the idea of this dwindling talent pool that now you're going to have, if you have two successful leagues trying to pull from the same talent pool, what's that going to do? Like what's it going to look like? I'm really like, God, leave it to Vince McMahon to get me excited about football.
Will you watch?
Definitely.
Maybe the first week?
Yeah, the first week to see what it's like. Which same way I did with the last time, I watched the first week, and I think I watched whenever Jesse Ventura came down from the announce booth to confront someone on the field. I watched that one.
Oh, when they did the rival, feud with the coach.
Yeah.
God, that thing. It's amazing that thing existed.
There's the best show on WFMU, that radio show that I'm a huge fan of, that it's like the comedians radio show that every comedian's been involved in. Like, we could name names and go on forever for it. But they did a whole skit about the XFL where the world's biggest XFL calls in one week. And it's all a comedy thing. But to say how upset he is that the XFL's gone and just go on about it. And I gotta send you the skit.
Raw this past Monday did 2,030,000 viewers, a 0.61 in the 18 to 49 demo. This was up against that insane college football championship game between Clemson and LSU, so it took an enormous chunk out of Raw. This was lower than all but one episode of Raw last year, so this was among the lowest in the history of the show. I would not put too much into this. The football game was enormous, but it is interesting to look at a year ago when they went against the same college football championship game that Raw was not as low as this week was, but I still look at this as an aberration. And overall, I would say that Raw the last couple of weeks, it's, to me, been clicking a lot more in terms of different stars that you can see that are on the ascent and are really starting to take hold. And you have a focus with the Royal Rumble as well. So I I say more so than SmackDown. I think Raw at the moment is in a relatively good spot, save for our Lana, Bobby Lashley, Rusev involvement.
Yeah, that's the one thing where, like, you know, once again, I keep bringing up my kids, but my eldest, you know, wants to watch Raw, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to watch that with you, you know, like that angle, that storyline, like, it's just.
What are they into? Are they?
You know what they love? I brought them to Alpha One, and we went to the Alpha One show, and there was a match that was Danhausen, Effie, Dan the Dad, and Orange Cassidy. And they loved it. They thought it was the greatest thing they'd ever seen. Like, they still, like, when we have our own wrestling match at home now, my middle child, Dorian, will put his hands up to do the tie-up and then put them into his pockets a la Orange Cassidy. Uh-huh. Like, they thought that was incredible. And I'm watching that match, I was like, ooh, this is something new. Like, I want to get excited about Raw right now, but I'm like, yeah, but they're still just putting like new pieces into the same configuration, you know? Like,
are they aware of the superhero Ricochet?
They are aware of the superhero Ricochet. They loved Ricochet before he became the superhero.
Oh, how about that?
A lot more.
Wow.
You know, go figure.
They thought of him as a superhero before he said, hey, I'm a superhero.
Yeah, when he was showing them that he was a superhero rather than repeatedly telling them that
superheroes are real.
And it's just, yeah, I don't know. When that was the one thing when we're watching Wrestle Kingdom and it gets to those matches and they're watching just these unbelievable talents, just at the highest level, you know, it's the physical charisma is just so compelling that then, you know, when you try and put on another match, it's like, it's so slowed down. It's so muted. It's like putting on a black and white TV show after someone's watched a 3D movie. It's going to feel so slow.
And the final note here, the latest class to enter the WWE Performance Center includes Jake Atlas and Mercedes Martinez.
Awesome.
Signed after all these years.
Yes.
She was in the two Mae Young Classics and then was part of the AEW Casino Battle Royale. 39 years old, getting signed, and was in the Battle Royal tonight. I have not seen NXT yet, but was in the Battle Royal tonight. And yeah, those were obviously the two big ones. Also, former NFL player was in this class, but everyone focused on those two. And, you know, Jake Atlas, I think a lot of people very high on him.
Awesome to see both of them get signed. I thought her faction with Shayna, who else was in the faction? It was in Shimmer, was awesome. Like, they were just like, she's so good. I'm really excited to see what she does in NXT.
Yeah, I am too. And especially, you know, everyone, I think, kind of is expecting that Shayna Baszler will not be at NXT any longer. No. Does Mercedes kind of ease into a similar role? Or do you ultimately see Mercedes Martinez kind of coming in here? It's a short run and she's ultimately there to be kind of like your player coach type role. I
think that's ultimately where they're going to try and put her, or that's where she's going to wind up. She's probably very excited to wind up there. I imagine that's from what I hear, it's a really good place to be. But I imagine she's just they're going to keep her in NXT for a while, as long as she's comfortable wrestling. And yeah, like have her be, you know, almost like the Cassius Ohno for that division, you know, like someone who is reliable to work with anyone and put on a great match, and someone who can kind of almost be the gatekeeper.
So those are all your news and notes for the day. And we're now going to get into AEW Dynamite, the first week of Bash at the Beach. Which I've got to say, I don't know if it works in January.
No, it's a weird, John, there's like when they open and, I don't know. Should we get into the set right now and stuff?
Go for it.
Okay. I thought it was a weird throwback to have that woman sitting up in that lifeguard chair the whole time.
That was very strange.
Weird.
Really took me back to those days when TNA had the women in the cages.
Totally.
And just kind of there as eye candy that to me really doesn't resonate in 2020.
No.
It feels very dated.
It feels very dated. It feels like kind of awkward. Like I thought maybe they're going to balance this out with a dude on the other side. Cause remember they did that kind of play with that thing at which pay-per-view was it where they did that thing where they had women come out and they brought guys out too. They did it on one of their things. I'm not sure. I thought they were going to do something like that. I thought, like, you know, but then I'm like, oh, wow, she's sitting there the whole time. Like, She doesn't really interact with anyone. Sammy Guevara, I guess, like...
I think they switched them up at one point. I don't think it was the same woman the whole time, but I could be wrong.
I was like, this is really awkward to have to be up there in that front chair.
You weren't the only person to point that out.
Okay, well, I thought that was a little weird. I thought the dress of the announce team... Like, holy God, John. I'm not a fashion plate by any stretch of the imagination. You know, here you and I are both sitting in sweatsuits, basically, chatting. You know, I would never insult someone else's way of dressing, but...
WH would.
Yeah, like WH would have a field day on this announce team today. Are you checking your phone to see if he texted you about it? Because he must have ripped into him.
I doubt he was watching this.
They looked rough. It looked like a bunch of retirees in Boca Raton, like on a drinking bender or something.
Well, it was Coral Gables, so close.
They definitely had that kind of vibe.
They were at the Watsco Center, and they started off with the graphic for Rocky Johnson, and then Jim Ross mentioning the passings of La Parka, Pampero Firpo, and Kendo Nagasaki over the past week. And already in the ring were the 4 tag teams for the number 1 contenders match. We've got Santana and Ortiz, the Best Friends, Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. So the winners will be facing SCU next week on the Jericho Cruise, which I've got to say, I'm looking forward to this just for it being something that is not in your traditional arena for 1 week. And I like doing ideas like this, like the cruise next week.
Yeah. It really struck me this week how similar this looks like to just another WWE product. Like, I think that would be the risk someone would have if they weren't familiar, being like, oh, WWE has 2 shows on Wednesday nights now. Because it just looks like they're black and yellow brand as opposed to the red brand or the blue brand or the other yellow brand.
They have their black and yellow brand.
Yeah, but I mean, there's like the more black than yellow brand as opposed to the more yellow than black brand, you know? Like, but it just like not the in-ring presentation once again, but like the actual just like physical presentation of the wrestling.
Do you think next week, because this is the first time that we will have a live NXT against a 24-hour tape-delayed AEW Dynamite?
It depends how many spoilers can get off that cruise ship.
Well, that's a great question because the Wi-Fi may not be
it's not great.
Doing too well.
I played a cruise one time, John, and it's not great out there on the open seas. It maybe got better. It was a few years ago that we played this cruise, but
I think it's very smart that they decided not to try and tape this live on the cruise because I would have expected a disaster.
They have issues with audio on regular broadcasts.
Yeah, we'll get into those tonight. Those continue to persist. So I thought this tag match was excellent.
Same.
They got a ton of time here, and this was 8 guys that were just like the top of their game. If some people may not enjoy this style of match, but if you do, these were 8 guys that did it flawlessly. Like some of the stuff they did, like you couldn't see through any of this stuff in terms of just no hiccups. It was just, I just thought everybody was on here. The crowd was very hot for Hangman Page. They're chanting cowboy shit. Then Omega gets tagged in. Omega is received like a god here in Florida.
Yeah.
Matt did the rolling Northern Lights to Trent. Trent was excellent in this match. He stopped those with a tornado DDT. They did the soul food into the half and half suplex onto Matt Jackson. Then Santana and Ortiz come in. They had this awesome sequence on Matt, and then they each did dives to the floor. Omega did the Snapdragons to Ortiz, Santana, and Trent, and then Paige and Omega came in, and they did a combination of the You Can't Escape with Paige doing a standing shooting star, ending with the Omega moonsault, and then Paige hitting the moonsault to the floor. This was unbelievable.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. To me, LAX were the ones that stole the show. I just think those guys are incredible, and I look what as you said.
Each team got their shine in this.
It's kind of like this is like if you're going to make a list of the best American tag teams right now, like these are like 4 of the tops, right? Like so to see them all in there, it's funny to see the Young Bucks come out like maybe not the weakest team because that's like they're so incredible, but like just like being almost overshadowed by the other 3 teams because they were basically doing the greatest hits.
We're still getting when we get the holy shit chants that they're trying to censor them.
And then they give up on censoring them. And it's like, they just gotta. And also, because as far as I know, from my rules, regulations of TV, which I had to learn when I was at Much Music, you can say shit. you can't describe like, oh my God, the cat shit over there, or this is cat shit and it smells terrible. You can't do that. I'm obsessed with cat shit, clearly, because I had to scoop litter before I left the house. But you can say like, oh, that was shit, like, or holy shit. You can get away with that, right?
Yeah, that was always my understanding. It's that you can, like, there was no, maybe it was different like on like digital cable, but just the idea that, you know, you don't do anything blatant that, you know, someone is going to complain to the CRTC over, but it's like, that's what you kind of want to avoid. But to me, it's like crowd chants. It's like, is that really ruffling any feathers? It just seems to me, it really is distracting.
And but it's also the audio just seems to drop out at random points otherwise too. Is it always because they think something's in the crowd?
Typically I feel TSN cleans up a lot of the audio that we don't get the same problems TNT does, because I hear about so many issues on TNT that I don't with TSN. Though tonight, that Jericho promo backstage.
Yeah.
Like there were constant cutouts there. And I'm saying like, at first you're thinking, are they censoring him from something? But it was like, what could he possibly be saying?
And there were other times too.
But then it happened frequently in that promo. It was very bad for that Jericho promo. That it's just constantly, it was just getting muted.
Yeah, and the announcers too. Like I noticed when they were like, there's a couple times where JR's talking where I'm like, well, is it something in the crowd? And I'm like, but I don't know. It's just really, you know. But once again, it's a new show.
So from there, referee Rick Knox gets kicked in the face and they go to do the 8-man suplex spot, culminating in Orange Cassidy coming in to give his side the upper hand, and they execute the vertical suplexes and then do the hug spot, and this place lost it.
He's the future of wrestling. Him and Nick Gage are my two favorite American wrestlers right now, because they're just two polar extremes of just like what you can do with working with people's minds, you know, and I think Orange Cassidy's just found something. And it's funny because I brought my friend to that show at Alpha One. He's like, he's literally just doing Paul Rudd from Wet Hot American Summer. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And he's like, he even uses the song. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, but it works. And he's like, yeah, it works. And so
this guy gets over every single time.
It's awesome. It's so fun to watch. And like when he came in tonight, you know, like I was kind of like trying to explain what was going on to my wife who was watching beside me, as this match is going on. Then he comes in and like right away, it's just like, I don't know. He's got such a presence. He
is the Kazaninare of AEW. It's just something every crowd looks forward to. It's like a small thing on the show, but it's awesome. And everyone loves his involvement, and he never overstays his welcome. Nope. And it's one of the loudest pops consistently.
And you've seen him live a bunch, right? Clearly, or you've seen him live before, I imagine.
I'm sure I have.
He's got a charisma like that just comes off live, even like I don't know.
And he's really athletic too.
He's good. He's great. Like, and it was. And
I want anyone that criticizes this guy go do a dive for us with your hands in your pocket.
It was funny because he was like trying to get out. Like, obviously, all these guys had to get a flight from Alpha One. So he's like walking through, because it was packed. Alpha One, by the way, incredible turnout, packed to the rafters.
Out of Hamilton.
And so he's walking between the rows and he's like just making comments to all the fans as he goes, like, oh, this guy's my favorite wrestler. Like, just like being hilarious. Like, just like, but he doesn't have to be. He's just that person. Like, I'd love to chat with that guy, but every time I've been around him, he's been in character.
He maintains the bit. So then after the spot, the best friends hit a pair of gotch pile drivers, strong zero onto Kenny, the Bucks make the save, and they lay out everyone with super kicks. The Meltzer driver gets stopped, and then Hangman tags himself in, upsetting Matt, and they do the buckshot, lariat, V-trigger combo to Chuck Taylor, and Paige gets the fall at 16 minutes and 35 seconds. Bucks are upset. They did all the work, but in the end, they fist bumped together, but Paige still left on his own to go grab a beer. Excellent match. I thought this was tremendous.
I love the match. One thing is that spot towards the end where like they went off the top rope to the floor and everyone's just like obviously has to wait to catch them safely. It's just, that spot is like, it happens a bunch of times in the show and you're just like, it takes me right out of the match every time. Cause I'm like, oh, they're all waiting to catch this person. And like when that spot's done right and well, it's incredible, but and it just happens so much in wrestling. It just takes me out for some reason. But I love this match apart from that, and that's me just being a complainy fan.
Well, now we get Omega and Paige challenging Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky on the boat next week.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. I imagine Hangman will get drunk during the match, maybe.
Yeah. It makes me feel weird, that whole thing. The drinking thing.
In terms of like he's slowly becoming an alcoholic on the show?
Yeah, they're doing with like it's happened a lot in wrestling over the years, and obviously hopefully he doesn't have a problem in real life that they're working into the storyline and stuff. But I don't know. I'll see where it goes. But I love him a lot as a wrestler, so I'll see where it goes. I trust them.
During the commercial, DDP's doing his yoga, lifting his leg all up and doing all the spots. He is a guy perfect for these picture-in-picture commercial breaks.
Well, it was amazing. He got a whole ad break of DDP yoga ads within the other ads. Like he's wearing the DDP yoga shirt and demonstrating the moves. Like I was following along at home. Like, oh, this is awesome.
He has never met the word subtle in his life. Don Johnson came out for a promo.
My wife is like, is he a good guy? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, no way.
He was dressed like an asshole.
Yeah, she's like, he looks like his name should be Dolph and he's an 80s movie villain.
He looked like every movie villain here. He's wearing like the white suit with the turquoise blue shirt with his dyed blonde hair.
How is this guy a babyface in any universe? He's the owner of the company. He's a second generation wrestler of one of the greatest wrestlers of all time and the brother of another one of the great wrestlers, depending on your opinion. But I love Goldust in the ring. And, and like, it's just like watching him come down in this suit. And then also the way he undercuts MJF, it's just like, this is what I was talking about earlier when I wish we had Nate here to explain the way different universes work. Cause I think Cody is in he can see both universes at the same time. He can see the universe behind the scenes and he can see the universe in the ring too at the same time. He's like one of the few guys that can look and directly at us as fans and tell us about, heels and people's heat and undercutting people in factions and stuff like that. He's like, Batmite in the Batman comic books where Batmite could see us as readers.
Well, Cody goes over all the stipulations laid out by MJF, and he's surprised that MJF wants Wardlow to take him on in a cage match because once people see Wardlow in action, they're going to be thinking that Wardlow is the one whose bags MJF should be carrying and not vice versa. He then says what MJF is doing is stalling with these stipulations. He brings up how he was raised by pageant parents who got him onto Rosie O'Donnell. And he's been bolstered by all the old timers out there that say he's a great old school heel. But no, less is not more. You're just lazy. And he goes on to accept all the stipulations. A steel cage match against Wardlow that's going to happen February 19th in Atlanta. We're going to get a month to build up to this cage match with Wardlow. Along with that, 10 lashes on television. I wonder if this means Lash LaRue is going to be just cut up into 10 pieces.
I hope he comes out in Tommy Dreamer cosplay as tribute to Tommy Dreamer at least, because I can't believe they're going to do that. Thank you, may I have another?
And then he cannot touch MJF until February 29th for Revolution.
Yeah. Yeah.
What'd you think of the promo?
I don't know. Sometimes he's got the best promos in the world. And when he was fighting against the WWE and fighting against everyone to build this company, I was like, this guy's the babyface. But now I'm like, I can't wait for him to become the bad guy. He is such a bad guy. And the way he was, and also, I'm going to let him in on a little secret. If anyone is rolling around with a bunch of old dudes, it's him. His entire crew is his dad's friends. His brother, his older brother.
He is tight with Glacier.
He's got this old dude crew with him. It's I don't know. I love what MJF does. I think he is, if you're a fan of that type of wrestling and that presentation of wrestling, like American style pro wrestling, he's one of the best doing it. And just to see him undercut like this, it's like, this is what we thought we were going to be different then. This is when I actually hit the guide button on the remote to show my wife that on Rogers it says, and I have this saved on my phone, it says like a sports-like presentation of pro wrestling that puts an emphasis on stats and analysis. And I was like, see, this is what it's supposed to be like this, you know? And it is like this. I love this show, and I sound really critical when I say it, but I don't know. This thing took me out of it.
I think it's, you know, when you have lines like this about, you know, heels and stuff like that, I think it is like at the end of it, like this is a pretty captive crowd behind Cody that he does have. And I do think he is a really excellent babyface in a time when it is difficult. And what he's trying to do is kind of navigate this audience that I think he's trying to speak with them. But at times it can be, to me, kind of detaches yourself from the story as well.
I think there are real baby faces in this company. There are people that you just like, you watch like, and I love watching with people that don't watch wrestling, because then you can see what their natural reaction is to people. And you can see like, cause we're so in the bubble, right? Like she has no idea about Cody's fight to start this company. And she had no idea about like who, you know, she just was like, oh, this guy seems like a bad guy, but Darby Allin seems like a good guy. You know, like Darby Allin comes across as real and comes across as like, you know, he doesn't have to undercut his opponent and expose him. And nor does Cody. I don't know why he's doing it.
He did undercut his elbow today.
Yeah.
And that looked like terrible.
He's got something about that spot.
So after that, and he says that MJF is only a chapter in his story.
Yeah. Oh,
and he's giving MJF his own scar at Revolution.
If MJF doesn't whoop his ass at Revolution, then this has been like WWE at its worst level.
I think MJF, it's going to be a bloodbath in this match. I think he's going to do enormous color.
Yeah, probably.
I think that's what this is going to be. This is going to be MJF just taking just a bloody mess, and I think try to get him over too as, you know, standing up to Cody.
And he's hardcore.
Yeah, kind of giving him that kind of edge as well by having a violent match with Cody that, you know, this story kind of has to lead to as well.
I wish this thing happened way longer. You know, one of my favorite moments in this whole company has been, which is I think everyone's favorite moment, when MJF tossed Cody the scarf and he wrapped it around his hand and smashed the window and opened the door. That was so cool. And to watch like Cody try and navigate like, yeah, this guy sucks, but he's my friend. Like something we can all relate to, having that friend that sucks, but like they're your friends. So you kind of like got to put up with them or got to explain them to your buddies. If you think that's me, John, if that's why you're laughing,
no,
I'm so bummed. But,
not at all.
You know, because I think we can all relate to different people in our lives.
Maybe
that are like
you're
this.
thinking that about me.
No way, John. You're one of my best buds. I brag about how you're my friend to people. Name drop you.
There's people listening to this is like, that's not a real thing. Well, you're that person then.
Yeah, then you're that person.
You're the guy in the group.
You're the guy in that group. And I thought that was such a cool dynamic, and it was so great. So I think that's why I feel like my wind's been let out of the balloon a little bit by this.
I think you took a detour this week and you were just colored by this outfit. The outfit, I think, just sent you down a path.
The outfit, the way he was like presented as a PowerPoint presentation, the way he was cutting it down, the way they're going to do the Tommy Dreamer thing. There's a lot that just bummed me out about this, you know, and I really do like both these wrestlers and I've watched them have great things, but like, I don't know. Like I really think they should get some like real working class people in these companies. Like go and find people that work at like McDonald's and be like, yo, who are the good guys and who are the bad guys in this situation? You know, and like start building some of these stories out where it's not just two guys, one guy who's like, you know, rich in the story, in the universe of the show, who's being undercut by a guy who's actually really rich for not actually being rich. Like, I don't know if that plays with real people.
Well, I talked about this recently, that in this alternate universe where Chris Jericho doesn't come to this company, Cody's probably in the role of top heel. Would you not think?
Yeah,
like
definitely.
That's probably, you'd need a top heel, and I think it would probably have been Cody unless they had gone. I certainly wouldn't have tried that with Omega. I think Omega had to be a babyface.
Yeah.
Like that's probably what the show is built around. It's Cody as a heel. And I think that, you know, I think he is an exceptional babyface. But I think at the same time, I mean, you bring up certain questions where I can see that disconnect with people as well, that this guy has certain characteristics that are not going to be relatable to a lot of people, just the way he's presented. But he's a fantastic promo, and I think that is where the connection comes from for a lot of people.
Yeah, but he's more Ric Flair than he's Dusty Rhodes.
Correct. Yes.
And so like that was the thing about, that's why that dynamic is the greatest dynamic in pro wrestling history, is because people identified with Dusty Rhodes and they want to see Dusty Rhodes get the better of Ric Flair because they were sick of the Ric Flairs in their lives. Maybe there's some transference going on right here, and that's what I'm working my way through. But I don't know. This part was one of the lower points on the show for me.
Then we had a promo from Joey Janela, who, wearing these glasses, I swear to God, you would not know it's Joey Janela. He looks so different with these glasses on. Mm-hmm. And he takes them off and you realize it's him.
And he also, his delivery is so different than on Twitter.
Yes.
I'm like, was he doing a weird voice right now? Like, it's just very different than, like, because you're so used to seeing him. Like, I see that guy talk to me more often than anyone because it's always stories. He's very, very good with social media, as we all know. But it's just so different than his on screen.
He was punched in the balls by his ex-girlfriend, Penelope Ford, and he didn't want anything to do with her, but she has to attach herself to him in order to get some buzz for herself. And he says in 2019, it felt like he was punched in the balls all year. But next week, he's got a match with Rey Fenix.
I'm excited for that match.
That's an interesting match on paper of what that thing is going to look like.
Oh, it's going to be awesome.
On a boat.
On a boat. Those guys are going to be the ones that do something.
Janela might go overboard.
You die. That's what they told us. Like, because I was like, oh, I'm going to jump off the boat. And they're like, you will die.
Oh, my God. What would possess you to decide that would be an option?
I don't know. I thought it'd be funny, you know.
At the end of the set or mid-set?
Like, I don't know. I thought the end of the set. We didn't even play on the boat in the end. We played
coming back
in the Bahamas and Miami. Probably because they thought I might jump off the boat. But I was not going to. As soon as they told me they were going to die, like, I just had no idea. But they're like, yeah, no, you hit that water. It's like concrete. I'm like, oh God. Yeah, that makes sense. And then they're like, then you get sucked under and killed by the motors of the boat.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm like, yeah. So someone's got to get a memo. I'm sure they tell this. They're probably like sit all the wrestlers down at the very beginning. They're like, listen, your wristbands get you unlimited drinks and don't jump off the boat.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
Brandy Rhodes and Mel versus Chris Statlander and Hikaru Shida. Luther is out with the Nightmare Collective, and early on, he blocks Shida from coming down the ring to the ring. So they gang up on Chris Statlander, and Shida fires off with a kendo stick onto Luther. So the match begins. Chris went for this moonsault off the apron. That was the intent. And then one of the announcers said, well, it almost looked more like a side Russian leg sweep. So think about that. You're imagining a moonsault off the apron, and it ends with something approximating a side Russian leg sweep. So that's how smooth this thing looked.
There's a lot of times that they called your attention to the fact, like, oh, did not get all of it there. Missed that one.
Nope. Shida did a missile drop kick that was way off, but they sold anyway. Then there was a knee strike, standing moonsault by Shida. Brandy comes to break that up. And then finally Chris hits the tombstone onto Mel for the win. And then Brandy yelled at Mel. I thought this thing was really clunky and all over the place. I thought this was the weakest match on the show.
Yeah, this was, I think this is actually where I hit the Rogers description to see that this was actually meant to be presented slightly differently for Lauren. The Luther thing is really weird. Also, at the end, they're playing up how dominant this faction is. It's like, well, we just saw them get beat. Like, are they really that dominant? Like, it didn't really look like there was that much of a threat, and it was like they were, outnumbered too.
Yeah, this was also supposed to be Awesome Kong, and they announced prior to the show she wasn't cleared due to an illness, so Brandy stepped in here as the replacement.
So you're going to have Awesome Kong lose?
Kong was, well, I would presume that it was Mel that was going to take the fall.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess so. If you figure they're building up Statlander and Shida as your two contenders.
So weird. Like you've got like this, one of the great monsters of all time in your company. And you're like, I guess you're building up your strong, but I don't know. It just feels like
I think Kong, though, physically is very limited now.
True, yeah.
I don't know how much you can really get out of her at this point either. I will say that I think you had to do something more with Luther after introducing him last week. To me, that segment did not get over very well last week. And this week, like, you need some explanation. Like, who is this? Like, we've had a week now, and he was just kind of there. There was no, he's chatting with Justin Roberts at one point. It's like, we don't know anything about this guy.
Yeah. And like, if you explain this to people and you explain the way the universe works to people, like, I'm willing to accept it. But like, it just feels like there's just too much stuff going on right now. Like, it just doesn't add up.
Well, they're still after hair, I believe. Although no hair was taken here.
No hair was
I guess because they were on the losing side of things. So
it's so gross. Like,
they got to you, clearly.
Well, I know. Well, and they got to everyone in that,
Luther.
Later on in that match there's a match later on where it seems like they got to every wrestler in that match too. And you too, John. You're coming for all of us.
There was a Dark Order promo. And
this thing.
They're trying to recruit the Elite, and they go through all the targets. Michael Nakazawa. Then they say it may be a longer process trying to get Kenny Omega. Brandon Cutler's on a losing streak, but they feel he probably wants more power. Paige is vulnerable now because he's drinking, and they must continue to target the Elite. And this was done with the evil boss that is at the head of the table, whose identity is sealed.
Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget.
Yes, Dr. Claw, that we will find out at some point.
Gadget. Next time, Gadget.
That's not a bad Dr. Claw.
Watched a lot of Inspector Gadget over the years.
I think everyone did in our age bracket. They got the Nightmare Collective and the Dark Order out in back-to-back segments. So,
like, this company reads social media. Like, I don't know. And once again, I love all the wrestlers involved, but like, this thing, like, it's like, so this is a commercial? Like, are we as the viewer meant to be your evil boss? Is that what you're telling us? Because then at the end, they're like, a paid advertisement for the Dark Order. And it's like, anyway, these two parts were like, this whole block of the show was a real low point. It was all uphill from here for me.
I'm awaiting Tony Khan maybe to go through all these criticisms, and his response is going to be 175 million. 175 million.
Yeah, like, more power to him, you know? Like, I want to smoke weed with that guy. My friends, I got a friend who's friends with him, and they smoke weed.
Okay. Well, maybe you can get him on your podcast.
No, I don't think so. I don't think he's into punk.
No.
I don't know.
You can get him into punk.
Maybe I could. Maybe he get me into...
We know he wanted punk.
If he can get me into $175 million, I'll get him into punk rock.
Okay. Sammy Guevara, Jon Moxley. The deal here, the winner of this match and the Pac Darby Allin match will meet on the boat next week, and the winner of that will get the next shot at Chris Jericho. So, Guevara comes out. He does his whole deal with the signs. He's trying to hook up with some woman at the end. Yeah.
It's he does this every week. It's I don't know. It's interesting that he finds a way to fill that time when they got that. It's funny to see each person's kind of method of filling that little.
It's like a real challenge to keep people's attention during these picture-in-picture when I don't know if anyone's paying attention during these breaks.
No, his one though is most compelling because I'm trying to read along and see what's going on with that. So he's obviously a Bob Dylan fan. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, good. I was going to be like, if you only know Aqua videos, I would be so bummed, John.
No, this is obviously the influence.
Okay. But yeah, it's fine. No, each week it's fine.
They're chanting for Moxley, and then he pulls up in the Ford GT.
Yeah, he got the car.
All I can say is Shad Khan must have the ultimate faith in this guy to drive his car.
They must also just like want to rub it in Cena's face so hard. Right? Because this was that car that it all went down with, right? With Cena?
Oh, was it? I didn't.
Remember when that thing went down with Cena? It's like sold the car that he wasn't supposed to sell from Ford because you have to sign a contract that you're not going to sell the car.
Yeah.
That's this car. And that's what everyone's saying. That's the reason they've picked this car.
Well, it's legitimately Shad Khan's car. That he owns.
Yeah, I'm sure they could have been like, I'm sure like there's probably a Bentley somewhere in that fleet of cars. There's probably like all these different cars. But the fact that they picked that specific car is like, it's a Virgil kind of thing.
Well, Guevara does a strut and then turns into a clothesline, and there's a springboard cutter from the top by Guevara, and Moxley comes back, nails him with a slap, X-Plex, and then caught with a double foot stomp onto the edge of the apron. This sent Moxley into the steps, and they go through the commercial, comes back, and there's a German suplex. Guevara lands on his feet, hits a standing shooting star, and then Moxley hits the original version of the Dirty Deeds, or the 1%er, and there's a tease of a paradigm shift off the top, but that gets turned into a one-man Spanish fly, knee to the face off of his shoulders for a 2 count, and then there's a moonsault off the top from Guevara, and he does a moonsault right into the grasp of Jon Moxley, who applies a rear naked choke, and Guevara taps in 9:26. I don't know what Guevara was necessarily attempting here with this backflip. I guess he was just going to crash into a standing Jon Moxley with his back. That was the plan, I guess.
Because like
because he fully rotated in terms of from a moonsault. He was like landing on his feet.
Yeah, maybe he wanted to land on his feet just to show off. Be like,
could have been
like, looky, I got hooky. Slap.
9:26. Jon Moxley is your winner. What'd you think of the match?
I enjoyed it fine. I love Jon Moxley. He's my favorite. You know what I think like in the 80s, there was like a certain vibe of wrestler where you had like a mullet teased out and you wear Zubaz, right? And that's like a certain archetype look. I think the present day archetype look for wrestlers is furry dude, where you got like a beard, bald, short hair, and a lot of body hair. And I think Moxley is like
the Mad Dog Vachon.
The Mad Dog Vachon, or like they kind of like Stone Cold Steve Austin, but like full grown. Chris Dickinson is, Timothy Thatcher rocks it really well. And I think Jon Moxley might be the most handsome version of it. Well,
this guy has been handled tremendously well in AEW. He feels like a top star. To me, on this show, it's really him and Cody are your big baby faces on this show. And I'm going to imagine that Moxley was your preferred performer tonight.
Yeah, and I think, definitely. I just think like it's a lot more of a easy to get behind kind of presentation.
Jericho's music hits, the lights go out, and then the inner circle appears in the ring, and they go after Moxley. Jake Hager applies a standing arm triangle as Jericho whips him with his belt, and then there's a running knee to the balls from Jake Hager, and Jericho, who's wearing his jacket with all the spikes, removes a spike, and suddenly it's the Road Warriors and Dusty Rhodes, and Moxley gets stabbed in the eye. And they made this a very big angle. Moxley was taken off, and pretty heavy-duty angle, and we would hear from Moxley later on.
Wasn't it Funk versus Jerry the King Lawler in the empty arena match, where he hits him in the eye? And he pulls the blade job in his eyebrow? And so the blood's coming all out of his eye. I was so waiting for
the ending tonight when you've got the bandage, like that's totally Terry Funk.
Yeah, definitely. But I was hoping, oh, do it. Please do it. Because it would look incredible. And that would have looked, that I was waiting for that. But apart from that, it was a great moment. Jericho, this whole faction I want to see, apart from LAX, I love LAX, but I want to see everyone else get beat really badly. Like they're doing great work, Sammy Guevara, Jake Hager. I can't wait to see someone beat him, and even Jericho, someone that I love and one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I can't wait to see someone beat him.
So presuming it's Jericho Moxley, which what I like about this is everyone knows what the destination is, and I don't think they're going to try and swerve you. It's just they're going to make you want this match and build to it. So you get to Jericho Moxley. Moxley has been untouchable during this run up to it. What do you do at Revolution? Is it time for Jericho to flip this title, or do you think that you should keep going with him? It's been a pretty good formula with him as the top heel.
I think you want to have him go through Jake Hager first. You want him to have to fight the underboss before you get to the main boss. And I think that would be a match to build to. But
you're saying with Moxley?
With Moxley.
Moxley and Hager.
Yeah, first. And I'd have that match first and then ultimately hold off as long as you can, because Moxley's got to win it, and Jericho's got to hold it for a little bit longer. It's like one of those.
Well, next week's the Pac and Moxley. So I think that's what you're getting at the paper.
I know. Which is I guess that's the way it goes in wrestling.
I think it does have that good dynamic for Revolution that I think it's one of those matches where it works effectively in pro wrestling where you can argue either way and you're really invested in, wow, just for this reason that you outlined. Like, do they take the title off Jericho or do they go with Moxley? Or do they beat Moxley after this big run? Like, they've been building to this match for quite a while. So, and now you get another 5 weeks of it.
Yeah, like this feels like this is the biggest match this promotion has, at this point. These guys are both kind of like, I would say the veterans. Well, there's a lot of veterans in this company, there's tiers of veterans. But
it's also a match AEW hasn't gone to yet.
Yeah, but it's also like a match that like fans want too, right? Like it's even the most casual of AEW fan will know these guys and will want to see this.
So after the break, Jen Decker is with the Inner Circle, and Jericho cuts a promo that it's an eye for an eye after Moxley smashed him with a bottle last week. There's tons of audio cutouts here. I didn't know what was going on, but the three of them are taking on the Jurassic Express next week on the boat, and Jericho ends it by saying, Moxley, we'll see you next week, even though you can't see us.
Yeah.
So maybe another Cena reference here.
He's awesome. He's so good.
This was such a great line at the end. He's very good.
Yeah, like I like, one of the all-time greats, and still continues to be that guy.
MJF, the Butcher, and the Blade versus Dustin Rhodes, QT Marshall, and Diamond Dallas Page, who will be 64 years old in April.
Yeah.
This is wild.
This match made me feel kind of young. I was looking at all these guys. I'm like, maybe I could train and get in there.
I think DDP looks great for his age and what he can do. Like 63. And he came out in his old leather tights. And the part I loved is that he had the ribs taped.
Yeah.
He had like a part of his ribs taped up.
It looked like it went all the way down the tape too, like right down into his
it was like barely visible. It was there.
Yeah. Like he also the fact that he like, here's Dustin Rhodes wearing like, full coverage, but he's like, no, I'm not wearing the shirt. No, I'm going out topless for this thing.
MJF was not topless. His shirt read, I banged Dallas's daughter.
He should have held off and then revealed it in the ring because I just think it would have gotten such a huge
He wore
moment.
it during the picture-in-picture like an hour earlier.
Yeah, like it would have been because they faced off against each other at the start of the match. And I'm like, if he had been wearing a track jacket and been like, oh, wait, and then revealed it to the crowd, it would have gone.
Paige fires up on him.
It would have been so great. But, that's why we're podcasting and they're writing TV, John.
Yeah, they're just 175 million to you two.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but John, it could have been 350 million, right? That's what we're saying.
That's it.
So
this is where they mentioned Cody's cage match for February 19th. That's the big show at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, which is an enormous building, and they're going to have to build that show up significantly. So they're touting it as the first cage match in AEW history as well. Mm-hmm. So MJF is avoiding DDP, and then he suckers Dustin Rhodes with the diamond ring and then passes it off to Wardlow. And Wardlow drops Dustin on the floor with a boot. We go through the break, and eventually they make the big tag to DDP, and this place goes nuts for him. He rams MJF into the turnbuckle, and MJF goes full Shawn Michaels versus Hulk Hogan. Yeah. He does a backflip bump off this turnbuckle. It looked ridiculous. He hit the diamond cutter onto the Butcher, but MJF then lands a low blow. Dustin comes in, hits a destroyer onto MJF. Then there's a diamond cutter on MJF. Blade makes the save, and QT Marshall hits the QT special. His space flying tiger drop. This one much improved from the last one, which was frightening. And Paige climbs to the top. Everyone's waiting for him.
Oh my gosh.
Including Damian, who's just got his arms extended in front of his TV.
Come on!
And down goes Paige with the, I will say medium cross to the floor.
Yeah.
And during all of this, they're showing the replay of the high cross, and MJF just rolls up QT with a schoolboy and pins him, hooking the trunks.
I missed the ending.
I think everyone missed the ending. It was like, I think it was done in picture-in-picture.
Once again, there's a lot of these guys that are furry dudes. QT Marshall, the Butcher and the Blade, a lot of furry dudes in this match.
Well,
you should grow a beard. You could be like a skinny furry dude. I guess it's like bears and otters in the gay community, but furry dudes also. If you're like just a straight dude that wants that. But you got to put a little meat on you, John. Let me give you some diet tips.
I don't know if I can grow a beard, especially the one I'm staring at right now. Like that's just not. I couldn't even comprehend.
Yeah, but I couldn't grow my hair out like you could, so let's trade.
I don't know about that.
Let's get all Brandy Rhodes on each other.
How did this work in terms of, it was really centered around DDP, but ultimately MJF getting the win at the end.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was cool to watch. Like, I don't know.
The Paige.
Yeah, like Paige was definitely, it was great to see him back in the ring. It's just like weird to see MJF, who I just feel like is getting like beaten down so much, like a guy who I think has potential to be such a major heel within this company already. He's super young, but already just to see him like getting beaten up by obviously a legend, but still like a man in his 60s.
You think making him too much of a coward is going to affect his ability to be like your main event heel?
Well, yeah, like I think next week they're going to probably, when they have that bloody match at the pay-per-view, they're going to have that, they're going to rehab him to a certain point, but I just like, I don't know, he's just got such a great promo and just to make him that guy in that company.
I actually thought as well in this, the Blade, Pepper Parks, I thought he looked really good in this match. He's in a role where he's not going to get any attention, but in terms of just feeding for these guys and, always being in the right place, I just thought he was like the perfect kind of punching bag for the legends like Paige and Rhodes here.
And I would say also the Butcher, Andy, my homie from Every Time I Die. I believe him too. I think they're a great team. What a great team. The whole unit is just so fantastic. And like, it's something that's got like a weird kind of like, maybe sci-fi spooky edge to it, but it's not corny. And that's what I like about it.
I think they were just victims of being kind of lost in the shuffle of all these new acts that they've introduced, that I think they were before Wardlow, but after the Dark Order and after the Nightmare Collective. And it was like this slew of new people coming in, and you haven't really gotten a chance to understand who these people are. Like they came in and they were helping MJF, and they're aligned with MJF, but then he's also got Wardlow as well. So I think they just need some kind of character development to know anything about these guys beyond just the look that they're kind of, that's the attachment.
And what threat do they pose to this company? Like the fact that in the on-screen universe, we know that there are vice presidents of this company wrestling within this company that are the good guys. Like what's the threat? What's the challenge that these people are fighting to overcome right now? And I guess it's the titles getting the titles, but at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, but you're still their boss. Like they might have your belt, but at the end of the day, you're writing their checks.
Jen Decker interviewed SCU. And Paige showed up hammered. Omega pulled him away and offered a gentleman's contest for next week. So it's kind of like the odd couple that they're going with Omega and Paige.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the match, but once again, I'm not a fan of this thing. But I do like the idea of Paige pulling away from the unit and kind of like having that separation, because once again, like you need conflict. Like who likes a story where there's no conflict?
And then the main event, Pac versus Darby Allin. We got several dives to the floor by Allin. Allin looked great in this match.
He's the promotion to me. I love him so much. That theme song too, Wicca Phase's theme. It just feels like he feels like the real star that they've made.
And quite a statement that they put these two on last.
Yeah.
Like this, if you were to look at this lineup, this is not the match I would be assuming that they would have closed the show with. Like that tells you they wanted to put a spotlight on these two in a big position to build the show towards.
Well, look at the way the crowd responds to Darby. Like a couple weeks ago, you had that woman in the front row painting her face like him. You have people every week kind of painting their face like him. I know there was a muted reaction to him on the YouTube show, but I don't know. He just feels like a star, Like every time he comes out, I'm like, gosh, we've been on the right horse with that wrestler show.
No, in terms of when you see fans dressing up at these shows, it's him and Orange Cassidy.
Yeah. And those are the two guys who are relatable, have unique presentations, just feel different. And I really want them to, lean in what works.
Allin got flung into the steps, and then he's holding his right arm, and we come back and it's all marked up. He's got like this these two cuts that just look terrible. Like, it's all red.
I had flashbacks.
Oh, a traumatic incident?
Remember when he got his elbows smattered?
Oh, I thought you were talking about yourself personally.
No.
You're right. The elbow. Well, this was not,
Same.
He was not in a body bag.
No. Well, that was after he went in the body bag. That was the other thing tonight. Like, didn't really stop him.
Did you have time or were you too late to catch the Gabe thread the other night?
I saw the whole Gabe thread. You know what, John? Right now, some upcoming guests. Gabe is supposed to be coming on Turn Out a Punk, and David Starr recorded an episode of Turn Out a Punk
together
a couple weeks ago. No, definitely not together. I'm wondering how I'm going to handle this booking that I have.
Have they been recorded yet?
Gabe's hasn't, but David Starr's was like weeks ago, and it's just like waiting to come up in the Kinney. So,
well, there you go.
Weird times.
Wow.
It was yeah, you're too tired for us to get into this, but I got thoughts, but we'll talk about it.
Is it evident that I'm tired?
I definitely see you like stifling yawns once in a while, and I'm like, I should shut up.
I apologize.
No, it's okay.
So, Pac lifts him onto the turnbuckle, and Allin counters with a crucifix bomb off the second turnbuckle, and then follows out with a coffin drop to the floor. Like, Allin worked his ass off in this match.
He's like, I really worry for him in the long term, but just to watch him is just like, people say Jeff Hardy, but it's like if Jeff Hardy was Steve-O from Jackass, you know, it's like on another level.
And then there's this big sit-out powerbomb from Pac. Tony thought that Darby's neck was broken from the sit-out powerbomb. It was pretty vicious. They fight on the turnbuckle. Allin takes several headbutts, lands on his front, takes the Black Arrow, and Pac gets the win. So, Pac versus Jon Moxley next week. The winner will face Chris Jericho. You know, part of me was kind of regretting that they had done Moxley and Allin on TV a few months back, because I think that singles match would have been, from just an interest standpoint, I don't think there's anyone believing Pac can win this match, but I think with Darby Allin, it just would have made for a more fun dynamic with Moxley and Allin. But they went with Pac here. I mean, it should be a great match next week.
To me, this company really is building to, and it really gets going when Darby Allin wins the title. Like, that's the one I'm like, built to. That's what I'm hoping for. I can't wait till that moment comes. But
you think he's gonna feud with Don Johnson? And
I hope so. I hope Don Johnson's the heel and Darby's.
I would love to see those two, and Allin ends up the heel.
I lived in my car. I shit in pizza boxes, you know, like, he's got the videos for that too. So
Cody's offering a car to MJF to fight him.
Like, if he, like, you know, I think that's the way this company builds to, and I can't wait to see that happen. But this is also the only match my wife was like into. Like, she was like, this is, you know, that's cool. That's cool.
Shivani got into the ring. He interviewed Pac, who called himself the new #1 contender. And because Moxley is incapacitated, it's a forfeit. So he's coming for Chris Jericho. But then we go to the back. Jon Moxley emerges from the ambulance. His eye is all wrapped up, and he gets out out into the arena and cuts a promo saying he doesn't care if he's blind or half dead. He'll be there next week to kick Pac's ass.
You're bearing the lead on this part. This might be one of the worst segments yet in AEW history, where the crowd around the ambulance is literally going grumble, 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 grumble. They're not even saying words to each other. And then he like forces his way out, and they're like the worst WWE extras of all time. And it's like Christopher Daniels. It's like real performers.
It kind of was weird that Daniels, like, yes, Daniels, this is kind of a role he's in, but on TV, he's Christopher Daniels, like tag team wrestler.
Yeah.
And kind of weird that he was used here for this spot.
And also like that he didn't try more, and then they weren't saying words. Like, it's just like, it felt, just so like, WWE does ambulance segments better than this. People coming back from the ambulance. Like, I was just really disappointed in this segment, especially because I love the match just before it. So,
you know, I thought the main event was fun, not terribly long, but they worked really well for the time that they had. And overall thoughts on Dynamite this week?
I like stuff I loved and stuff that I was obviously not a fan of at all. And I didn't mean, I wanted to come in, especially because they signed that new TV deal. I was like, oh, I'm going to come in super positive on everything. And there's definitely stuff I, as I say, really enjoyed, but yeah, not this ambulance segment and not Cody's promo.
I thought the high points, certainly the tag match, enjoyed the main event a lot. To me, the tag match was definitely match of the show for me.
Yeah, the tag match was pretty awesome. There was a lot of cool stuff. The later tag match, and then the main event too. Like I thought the injury angle was done well with the spike to the eye, and it flew by. Yeah, like that's the other thing, that this show was over, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get
these 2 hours moved pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think it's one of the better paced shows that we have. Probably the best paced 2 hour show.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like my wife didn't ask to change the channel. So.
Well, that's always the key.
The key.
You could have invited her.
Someone had to watch the kids, John.
Oh, that's true. All right, well, let's go to the forum, and we'll get everyone's feedback. Damian just started tapping his watch, so I don't know what that means. Hurry up. Brandon from Oshawa, really excellent show tonight. As someone who loves to cruise, I've been on 7 of them. Next week's episode has probably been my most anticipated show since I realized they'd be having Dynamite on the cruise. I really hope they can stay consistent and have a solid show because it's been pretty inconsistent the last few weeks. The women really are the bad spot, and I hate to say it because I've tried to support him as long as I could, but JR has to go. It's just too many mistakes week after week. Getting the company name wrong last week and getting MJF's name wrong twice in the same match. I'd like to see Taz replace him. They've been close to 1 million the last couple of weeks. Do you think the Bash at the Beach concept will bring more eyes and bump them over 1 million this week?
It could, like they're, I guess their numbers have been trending up slightly, in spite of what I said earlier. So yeah, like it could, like I think anything that kind of gets that excitement going week to week, always having that hook, always having something on social media people are chatting about, like, definitely doesn't hurt it.
Yeah, I could see this one being kind of in the range of the last 2, maybe a little less. There wasn't like that big, match that they had to build towards tonight, but, the last 2 weeks, they've kind of just stayed at this consistent mark, like right under 1 million viewers, like very healthy numbers, and could be right around there again this week. I'm curious next week, like if the cruise, it's like this really novel concept that I could see a lot of people wanting to tune in almost instead of like worrying about spoilers. It's kind of like the same appeal that first NWA Power had, whereas you just want to see what this looks like, because the environment is kind of the draw as much as any of the matches as well. And if people enjoy it, like, is that going to be fun for 2 hours to watch a show on a cruise?
I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to, like,
I'm looking forward to it.
I've never seen one. So.
I just like the idea of doing different stuff. I think this is a really smart idea to try this.
I hope they have just drone shots. I guess you can because you can't really do a jib, right? So you probably might just do a drone and have drones come in. And I think you do some really cool stuff. Watch us come up with way better ways to do it.
I'm worried about Darby Allin now just diving overboard or something like that.
John, the stuff he's seen and done and told me about is just terrifying.
And you probably have half of it on camera.
We got some stuff on camera, but he's got more of it on his own camera. Did I tell you this time where they took a bunch of laxatives and then drove from Seattle to Las Vegas? And the deal was they had to have all the windows in the car rolled up, and they wore Depends, and they didn't stop to go to the bathroom. And if you did roll down the window, you had to get hit in the face by everyone else's Depends diaper.
Oh my God. So, what is the novelty in this?
So none of them broke. And they got to Vegas and they had just shit their pants for the entire drive, right? So they get to Vegas and they immediately take off the diapers, towel off as much as they can, and then go and do one of those slingshot bungee cord things. And they get there, they do it, and the guy's unbuckling him afterwards, and he's like, did you shit your pants up there, man? He's like, no, I shit my pants earlier today. It's fine.
Oh, my God. Nick from Lansing. AEW continues to put out strong shows each week, with the one point of weakness for them being their women's division. Opening match is really great. They packed in a lot of action, but managed to get across the frustrations between the Elite and Adam Page. I love the Hangman getting the surprise pinfall, furthering the decision in the group and dissension in the group, and their promo later with SCU is funny. The women's match is pretty rough, as alluded to earlier, because at the beginning of the match, especially at the beginning of the match, but I'm happy to see Statlander being booked strong. Sammy Guevara gets better every week in my eyes. He feels more confident in his character work as he prances around, making his flashy mobster feel like he was taunting everyone in the arena. What a main event. They packed so many moves in, I don't know how to keep track of it all. But both men felt like stars just on their athleticism alone. Next up is Hagaki. Overall, much better show than the first two of 2020. This was our first time watching on AEW Plus. Not seeing the commercials made the show feel like a pay-per-view, minus one break that was just crowd and sign shots. Great open, cool Dark Order promo. They seem to have me back and forth on the gimmick. Another unfortunately lacking women's match, not at the fault of Statlander or Shida. Surprising end. I give this show a 9 out of 10. Then we go to The Archivist. First off, I want to compliment Damian and Fucked Up on their cover of In View by the Tragically Hip. I guess you guys recorded it a while ago, but I just heard it last week and it was the highlight of my day. Thank you for that tribute to Gord.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for your work.
I really enjoyed this show from start to finish, but my main highlight was Sammy Guevara. Most of the names from AEW I already knew before Dynamite started, but Sammy was an unknown to me. Week after week, he improves to the point where I feel he's the number 2 guy in the inner circle. His match tonight with Moxley was excellent, and his cue cards are keeping my eyes glued to the screen. So there you go. The sky's the limit. Question for Damian. Do you have any plans to have Andy Williams on the podcast?
I want to. I talked to him a couple years ago when I saw him at a Smash show, and I got his number and then I lost it, and I got his number again, but he seems pretty busy these days. I keep hoping to run into him in person and just kind of set up that way, but
how do you lose a number in modern day?
Because I put out a note for some stupid reason, and it's not, I don't know. I think my phone was dead. I remember my phone being dead. It was like a really weird moment. I went to a Smash show last minute. My phone wasn't fully charged. And
do you know who's wrestling in Mississauga this Sunday at the Destiny show?
No.
Marty Scurll is up here.
Really?
Marty Skrull's on the show. Josh Alexander is on the show.
Wow, let's make a drive.
It's it looks like a good show.
If you bounce back, let's make the drive. Let's make the trek.
Oh, there you go. Sunday night, everyone. Destiny Wrestling. Sean from Toronto. While the Bash at the Beach theme didn't really extend past the set and the clothes worn by pretty much everyone except JR, this was still quite a solid episode of Dynamite. It was quite amazing to see the 63-year-old Paige still has it in the ring, which is probably as good a testament as any about the power of the DDPY program. I'm not sure about the alcoholic Hangman Page angle, since there are probably better ways to turn a guy heel. Anyone else think that Ortiz's hairstyle was reminiscent of Ming and Haku circa 2001? All right. Person not sold on the Hangman Page angle either.
See, I'm with you on that one. But once again, I can't stress enough. LAX is one of my favorite tag teams. And I feel like, to watch them develop over the years, to see them. I remember that WrestleMania weekend where they were just wrestling everyone. That was the whole deal. Open challenge to this point where they're one of the best tag teams going. I don't know. Every time I see them on there, that's one of them and Darby Allin are my two favorite parts of these shows.
Andrew writes, excellent show tonight. AEW seems to have everything running well for them, and it's hard to criticize most of the wrestling on the show. However, the women are still an issue. If Kenny Omega is running the show for the women, it isn't working with him at the helm. I watched an epic moonsault slap to the back by Chris Statlander and a boot choke to the shoulder by Brandy. The tag teams sometimes have this issue, but it's more pronounced with the women. I'll just say that having someone different in charge of the women is not going to correct an issue like that.
No, and also there's obviously a lot of incredibly talented women wrestlers out there, but a lot of them were signed up in the last few years to the WWE or are still in Japan or are tied up with other contractual obligations. So, it's going to be a hard go attracting those talents. We just talked about how one of the best women's wrestlers just showed up at the Performance Center this week. And
right.
That's another player that's off the board. So, I have some empathy for the situation they're in.
If you are a 23-year-old wrestler, let's say you're in your mid-20s and you've been wrestling for 4 years, okay? So you're still relatively new. Is AEW that attractive? Would you be willing to, you get a good money offer at that stage, but it's limiting in the sense that, AEW is not touring. A lot of these talents can still go out and do independence, but does that make WWE more attractive? Just knowing that your schedule should hopefully be more full, even if you're at NXT doing the Florida loop or the NXT touring shows. What is more attractive to you if you're a younger wrestler at this point?
I've never heard about what the high end of AEW contracts are. How much money some of these wrestlers are making on the high end of women's wrestlers in that company. I know they talked about gender parity, equal parity as far as pay equity goes. But I don't know if they've ever achieved that. I remember that conversation kind of disappearing. But so I would say, like, if you're going to go out there and you're going to have the chance to make millions and millions of dollars, like the money you make in the WWE is just like unbelievable. Like, there's a reason that people aren't happy there and they're still willing to stick around because the pay is that good. So I don't know. I guess it's pay versus freedom. And, you know, I'm a dad now, so I might go with pay. I normally would go with freedom, but as a parent, I might go with pay.
Noah from Vaughn writes, aside from the women's match being just okay, I thought everything else was very good to great. Fantastic opener where all 8 guys got a chance to shine. The Dark Order videos continue to be a highlight for me. I thought it was just great. Very enjoyable show. Easy to watch. 2 hours, 8.5 out of 10. And we've got 2 more here. Alexander from Portland. His question is, what are your thoughts on the RVD promo from Impact last night? Was it any less classy than the cuck angles WWE have been doing?
I don't know. Maybe it's because like it feels like a more adult product all around. I didn't have as much of a problem with it. It's certainly sleazy and scummy, but like
that's kind of like
the point,
the character that they're pushing with RVD is
like, and I don't think it's the worst thing on there, but you know, I maybe I should rewatch it.
I think Impact is trying to do a lot of things, and they're mainly generating ideas that are going to get a high level of response. I think they're trying to shock people, with whatever they decide to do. And part of that is doing like over the top comedy, shocking stuff. I think they're just looking at anything that's going to register with an audience that has been fairly indifferent to them over the past year, despite, you know, relatively good reviews for their shows.
That was one of the most intriguing pay-per-views I can remember. Like just the whole time just being like, I wonder where this is going to go. So everything up until the main event just felt like
this was hard to kill.
Yeah, hard to kill. Sorry, I'm talking about. It felt like it was just like, you know, you're watching a bunch of openers before you're waiting for like the headliner, but you're waiting for the headliner in this case for a lot of the wrong reasons. So it's a little different than being at a show, I guess.
The last one here is Eric from Miami. I was at the show live and they did 6 matches for Dark. That's quite a lot. So they did Big Swole versus Diamante, Nyla Rose in a tables match, Dark Order versus Sonny Kiss and Brandon Cutler, Strong Hearts versus Jurassic Express, Phoenix versus Joey Janela. So, okay, they taped that for next week's Dark. And then Kip Sabian versus Michael Nakazawa. The show was amazing. The opening tag may have been the best match I've ever seen live, but they have a serious issue with this women's division. The show started hot with the tag, great Cody promo on screen. They showed Darby and Pac, so I assumed it was next, but the show came to a stop with that women's match. Anyway, I hope the crowd came across well because it was a lot of fun. I thought the crowd
was great.
Sounded really good.
Really loud. The whole way through. It feels like a lot more homogeneous than a crowd that you see at WWE. You know?
It always has this like party atmosphere. Like you watch the 2 shows and it's a lively crowd for NXT, but to me, AEW, it just feels like the party. Like that's the crowd you would want to be a part of.
Well, everyone's around the same age. You know, it seems like when they do the pan, you don't have as many kids. You know, there obviously are some kids. But like, it just feels like everyone's around the same age. It's like more of a college crowd. Not as rowdy as the WCW crowd, but more that age group.
Well, that is all our feedback. Thanks to everyone for posting.
This has been one of the hardest episodes for you to do. I'm so sorry, John.
No, not at all. I'm battling jet lag, but
you look like I've watched you die during this episode. You're like slowly fading.
I've been awake since 5:30 a.m. this morning.
Same, brother.
So we carried things, I think.
Me?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh, I just know. I love coming and do this. So I appreciate you inviting me. As soon as I got the call, I'm like, all right.
I appreciate
main show.
I offered you could have done Skype, but you decided to come all the way over. So I greatly appreciate that.
I wanted to get the energy, you know?
So what is kind of on your list right now of like what's got you right now in wrestling? Like what is must see each week?
I think New Japan. Totally, you know, I think this time of year obviously refills everyone's batteries for New Japan. I think the G1. I think AEW week in and week out. I know I seemed hypercritical tonight, but I just wanted to kind of like put my critics hat on a little bit for this because I think, you know, we as fans that are in the bubble tend to kind of look at things within the bubble, but like when you step out of it a little bit, you know, it looks a little different sometimes. So, but yeah, no, I do love this show and I'm really enjoying watching it. I'm in DDT. stuff that happens in DDT, I still kind of follow. Shout out to Michelle and her blog, Indie Wrestling in Japan, and all that stuff. I follow a lot of stuff. I try to follow as much as possible, but NXT,
Will you be watching the Royal Rumble?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I've got plans. I've got some friends in town, and we were just talking about how I'm going to go to their studio where they're recording, and we're going to watch the Royal Rumble in the studio. Wow. They're big wrestling fans. There's a lot of, it feels like it's still such an exciting time to be a fan, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, all the stuff that happened on Twitter, but yeah, that's happening and that's real, but that's happening in every part of culture right now. Like a lot of stuff is being called out and called to task and stuff. So the stuff that's happening in the ring is still really exciting. There's still so much of it and so many different types of things. I'm really excited for that blood sport.
That's going to be a really fun show.
Yeah.
Yes.
I gotta figure a way to get down there, man.
You can come sit with us.
Can you put me in your bag?
Could try.
Did you hear about that, the guy that snuck out of Japan in a
No, I didn't hear
music
about this.
case? The chairman of, I'm going to screw up the company. Some big corporation
That couldn't afford a plane ticket?
He was being brought up on fraud charges, so was under house arrest, but it got smuggled out in like a Yamaha case. Like a Yamaha music case.
That's amazing.
It got smuggled to Iran in it. And they had to put in a statement saying, we do not encourage you to hide in our music case and try and get rolled around in them.
God. Well, you always have to, whenever you see like a warning for something, you always have to think like, something necessitated this warning being there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, don't run out into the street with your eyes closed. It's like, how many times did this happen before a warning was necessary?
You need that, you need someone to make that mistake so everyone knows not to do that thing again.
I remember always, when McDonald's, they had to put like the caution hot on the coffee. And I remember when I was younger, and all my friends would just make fun of that. And it'd be like, oh, this woman sued them because coffee was hot. And it was like, okay, that sounds kind of weird. And it taught me this lesson that anything that sounds kind of weird like that, probably find out the other side.
Yeah.
And then you watch that documentary on this poor woman that had this scalding hot coffee and had like significant burns as a result of this coffee that fell on her. And it's like, they found out like McDonald's was brewing their coffee at this unbelievable temperature. And you watch this documentary and it's like, oh my God, like you totally sympathize with this elderly woman and the heat of this coffee.
Well, that's like, there's so many things like that where we're at a great moment where, because of it, social media, we have the ability to hear the other person's side. Like, I remember the one about the woman that got attacked by her monkey. And it was like all the talk shows made fun of it. It was like a big joke. She got attacked by her monkey. I saw a documentary about her. The monkey ripped her fucking face off, John, and ate all her fingers. Like, it destroyed her life. A monkey. And we were laughing at it, and like, like the Paige joke. Like, I know, to bring it back to wrestling that Triple H made. Yeah. It's an innocuous joke. Like, a lot of people, I saw your feed today were going to like, what? It's just a joke. But then you hear the other side of it. Like, no, here's how it hurts that person. That was a joke at the expense of. Like, so now you can kind of see like, shit, maybe it wasn't that funny.
Yeah, like that's, to me, the don't be an asshole is a really good slogan to live by. You know what I mean? Like how, and again, it's like, I'm not trying to be like, condemn Paul Levesque here. It's like, okay, you made a bad joke.
Yep.
Acknowledge it. He did and apologize. Great. Because it's like when you make a joke like that, it's almost like, okay, we've got the go ahead that it must be fine that we can all make these jokes. And I think about someone that, okay, for the next month, we're not going to think about Paige and any past stuff that she's had to deal with, but she will, because probably daily she's getting comments about this tape and like this invasion of her privacy. That's what that was. You know what I mean? And it's, I mean, just, you look at it from that perspective, that your momentary haha moment is probably a pretty deep scar for somebody else that has heard every joke imaginable and would do anything to just move on and not have to hear about that. And I really feel, especially for females in this industry, of the abuse that they must take on a daily basis, from fans who just feel they can fling whatever at them. And I'm sure males get it too, but I think it's very difficult, probably in any form of entertainment, to be a female that is on Twitter and just open to whatever people's comments are about how they look, about anything.
Yeah, and I think even more recently than that, she had a traumatic incident. Like, you hear the stories about what happened to her during her hiatus from the WWE, and like, it sounds like that was a pretty traumatic experience to go through as well. And so here's this person who you would imagine they would know internally is dealing with some fragile issues or certainly, has had some traumatic experiences.
Yeah, it had a miscarriage as well. Like, on top of this, about making the joke about, you have kids that you, again, like, I honestly do not believe the guy was trying to be malicious, but don't try and defend this joke to me. You know what I mean? And he's not. So no. I don't think people out there, it's like, I'm getting this stuff back. And I really don't care if people want to disagree with me. That's fine. But anyway, that was there anything else you wanted to tackle? Was there anything else on your mental list?
There's one more thing, John.
Uh-oh.
I've done many appearances here at the Post Wrestling Studios, but I'm sitting on a backlog of Turn Out a Punk wrestling episodes.
Oh.
And I would love to invite you on my podcast one day to talk about these Turn Out a Punk wrestling episodes as of late, including Jimmy Jacobs, Jim Smallman, Effie's coming up.
I heard Jim Smallman.
David Starr's coming up. Some big ones that I told you about earlier that are also coming up. But I do another show where I talk about my podcast with another guest after the fact, and he hates wrestling. So I need to call in on my Alcoholics brothers to come on to the show and do an episode with me when you recover from jet lag. I'm not going to make you do it tonight.
I was going to say, let's do it in the morning.
I'm going to start recording now. Let's go.
I'm going to get a good night's sleep, and then I will come and do your show. I'll even come to you, because you came to me.
I would love you to come, and you can see the bat. You can finally see the bat in person.
The bat?
The Onita bat.
Oh, the bat. I'm thinking like a flying bat or something like that.
You have a pet bat now. I'm a freak.
Did you purchase a bat
freak.
that I was not aware of? Okay, the Onita bat. Yeah, I've not seen this thing in person.
Yeah, so we'll make a day of it. But that's what I would love you to do. Come on the show, because I have had a lot of wrestlers on lately, and a reluctant host to talk about them with.
Okay. Well, for Damian Abraham, I want everyone to follow Turned Out a Punk, Left for Damian on Twitter, and I know it's going to happen. Season 2 of The Wrestlers. It will happen.
You had faith in season 1 coming out, John, when I had none. So I knock on wood, and I hope that it does come true. But, there's no word of that right now, literally at all. So we'll see what happens. But it's on Crave. It's on Crave now if you're in Canada.
That's right.
So
you can go watch all of them.
Yeah. And thank you to everyone who's sent out some kind words. A lot of people have reached out to me.
People brought it up during our trip to Japan.
Yeah, people were telling me.
Came up several times.
A lot of people hit me up saying they heard about it on this show for so long because, you guys were the ultimate cheerleaders for this thing with me. And then to have it come out now and they can watch and said really nice things. So thank you, everyone.
All right. And if you do watch any of them on Crave, you can go back to past episodes of the Cafe Hangout for our companion shows where Damian takes us behind the filming of every episode.
We should extract just those parts of the conversation and put them out as a separate podcast. I'll put them out on my feed. I may have to go and try and edit that, just those sections.
Yeah, we should do that.
Yeah, cool.
Because each episode Damian went through and gave all the stories, stuff that didn't make it onto the air. Really enlightening stuff about all of those episodes. So you can go check that stuff out. Thank you again, Damian, for bearing with me tonight. I appreciate it very much.
I can't wait to watch you edit these podcasts and put them up for the next hour. So I'm excited.
Damian's just going to stand here awkwardly.
No, I'll just talk the whole time. There's no awkwardness.
All right. Thank you to everybody for listening, and we'll be back before you know it.